Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series where I review every single Capcom CP, CP System Dash, CPS2, and CPS3 game ever made. And today we're taking a look at Mega Twins, more famously known as Chiki Chiki Boys in Japan. And strangely, it is an arcade platform game, and that is something that we don't see very often. There's definitely a few, but it's not a genre that was really in arcades as much as it was on home consoles. Before we get too far involved, though, if you do me a huge favor, go down below and hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we have a Patreon link down there as well. But this is a really interesting game, just because it's a platformer for the arcades, like I mentioned earlier. That's not a genre that you got a ton of. There's a few on the Neo Geo, there's a few in other arcade boards, but the platformer was mostly the domain of the home console. But this game is still really fun. Control-wise, it's got a really strange floaty feel to it that takes a little bit to get used to when you first start playing the game. It might give you a little bit of trouble, but it's something that you'll learn pretty quickly. Your character jumps really far, really high, and they like to float down to the ground ever so slightly. If I had to compare this to any game, I would probably say it's close to the Bonk games. Now granted, setting-wise it's completely different, and we have a sword versus Bonk just basically using his head, but it looks really similar to those TurboGrafx 16 games as well, which is a good thing because the Bonk games always looked and played really well. And this is a really nice diversion if you're tired of playing, shmups or fighting games or beat-em-ups. You want to play something else on an arcade board, a different genre, that you can definitely do a lot worse than this game. And it's got some decent longevity and depth to it too, and usually when arcades had platformers on them, the games did last a little bit longer just because inherently they are slightly easier. But I would say that this game in spots can feel slightly cheap, and that's the interesting thing because it is still an arcade game. It wants to take your quarters, and I inadvertently died there, but it's good because this is another one of those Capcom games that gives you the warning sound effect when your life is low. It drives me nuts and I wish I could turn it off. But that's one of those things. It's a fun platformer. It's slightly more difficult than home platformers because it does need to separate you from your quarters, but it is still a really fun game to play, and since it is an alternative genre than what you're used to, it is definitely something fun when you're getting bored of your standard arcade sort of genres. And you do get a little intercut story here. Everyone knows that I'm coming and they're going to be giving me power-ups, and you definitely evolve throughout the game. What I love so much about this is that each level is slightly different. Now we're hopping in the water and we have an underwater level. The physics are going to change, we're able to float, and now it feels more almost like a horizontal shmup, but also a platformer at the same time. And it's always mixing up what's going on, giving you something new to do, and that definitely keeps the game feeling fresh all the way through. Now graphically, it's also a really fun game to look at, and because it is kind of a cartoony platformer, Capcom really amps up all the different colors, all the animations, the cartoony enemies that you have to fight, and I really like that. I like really colorful arcade games, and Capcom was one of the best at developing art for that sort of style, so it's definitely a lot of fun. I mean, we're fighting clams, sawtooth sharks, these giant what look like blue crawfish. Everything has its own fun and unique personality, and it's not something that I see very often in arcade platform games, and that's why I really do enjoy it. And even the backgrounds, you get that waviness going through the screen to emulate being underwater. All of the little small details in this game are a lot of fun. I would say one of the weaker spots are the boss battles. You'll see here that I just have to fight these two. I'm assuming they're stingrays, and all I have to do is hit them on that little light in the front of their head and they're dead. It's definitely a game designed, I feel like, more for kids, and granted when this game came out I was a kid and enjoyed playing it, and that's probably because I was better at it than some other arcade genres. But it will be one of the easier games you play on the platform, but that's nice sometimes to, walk away from the really hardcore shmups or fighting games when you're playing over and over again just to get slightly better. It's a really good palate cleanser to give you something new and exciting and different to do, and I do appreciate what it's doing there. But the soundtrack is also great as well, so why don't you go ahead and listen to that for about a minute. I'll come back and tell you more about why, if you've never checked arcade platform games out, or if you've never played Chiki Chiki Boys, why you definitely want to do so. But enjoy! And these boss dragons here, that's what really reminds me of the Bonk games on the TurboGrafx or PC Engine. And obviously these are made by completely different teams, but it still has that same really nice cartoony looking effect. And I really do enjoy that. And I like these little intercut sequences as well. Like I said, you get just enough story. This feels like it was definitely designed to be a home console port, and obviously that did happen. So I feel like when they were designing this, they were putting some more things in, intending this to actually go home, because platform games were huge during this period in time. Everybody wanted to make a platform game. You had Sonic, you had Mario. Every company was thinking, let's get our own mascot platform game going, because that's where the money really is. So I see why Capcom would have added a little bit more into this than they would have some of the other arcade games that maybe were never intended to get home ports. And you'll see here that we've uncovered a gem, and that's going to unlock a door into a different world. And again, the game's just going to change. It's going to start looking different, feeling different. And that is the really fun part about this game, is that it's constantly evolving, it's constantly giving you different stages, new areas, and feeling fresh. And I think what we're fighting is tamarind monsters. I'm not sure. I've been to Central and South America, I've seen a lot of tamarind, never seen it jump down and fight me, but it doesn't look like that. And that's just the fun part of this, is there's different enemies going on. You have aquatic monsters, you have crabs, you have tamarind fighting you, and you're going to see one of the bosses coming up is, I think, a gigantic tamarind, maybe he's a soybean, who knows. If I did have one complaint against the game, then you'll see here, is that it does like to essentially start recycling elements. We're going to be fighting the same dragon now, except he's a different color and he has a little bit more health. But some of the bosses from earlier stage are just going to become mid-bosses later on. And I get that as far as development's concerned. It keeps costs down. It makes things move a little bit faster when you're working on the game. But I hate when they start recycling every previous boss for a new mid-boss. But I do love what they do in the backgrounds here. As the lightning comes up, you'll see these giant monsters with their claws out ready to attack you. They never are, but it is just a nice, small little touch. And Capcom was famous for putting those small little touches in their games, just little details that aren't essential to the gameplay experience, but add so much more just to the visual nature of it. And this is the guy that I think might be the gigantic tamarind. If you know what vegetable he is, you can tell me in the comments. I know it's a random thought, but I'm really curious. But it's just a fun breath of fresh air to be able to play a platformer on an arcade platform. And when I was capturing these games, I did play them in alphabetical order. It was the easiest way for me to keep track of what I had done versus what I hadn't. And when I got to play this again for this series, I was really excited to play it, because I'd played so many beat 'em ups and so many shmups already that getting something like this made my experience a little more fun. Because it is fun to play video games and talk about them for YouTube, but it is still in a way some form of work, and this was kind of the fun project that came down the pipeline before I had to play another shmup or another beat 'em up. But if you've never checked this game out before, definitely do. If you're into platformers, you're going to have a lot of fun with this one, and obviously the arcade version is going to be the best version to play. It did get ported to a couple modern-ish systems as well, but honestly this emulates on anything. You can buy the original board, you can play it on the MiSTer Field Programmable Gate Array device like I am. There's so many ways to play it, but if you've never checked it out, definitely do check it out. And if you have played it, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Leave me a comment or a question below. I love chatting with you guys, because I played this a few years ago for fun, but this isn't something that I'd played recently-ish. I played it in the arcades when it came out. I played it a few years ago to catch up with it, and now I'm playing it again, and it's constantly reminding me just how much I do enjoy the game. Just like I said earlier, give it 5 minutes, because when you first start it, the controls being floaty can slightly mess with your head, but once you get used to it, you're going to really love it. Other than that, I will be back next Wednesday with another episode in our CP review series, and I will be back on Thursday, Friday, Sunday, and Tuesday as well with more videos. But like I said, if you've never played this game before, just give it a shot. If you really enjoy platformers, you're going to like it. If you're getting a little tired of shmups, beat 'em ups, and fighting games, you're really going to enjoy it. If you don't like platformers, I would probably say just skip it, but that's me. Short of that, thanks so much for watching, guys. Do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Definitely helps us out. But we will be back next week to talk about the next game in the series. Bye-bye.